Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Hello and welcome to show number 46 of Keto Life Support. I'm Kim Howerton, and this is your intro. Today's show is pretty short. It's just about the difference between excuses and explanations. It's an important mental shift for people to make to go from a place of powerlessness to empowerment in terms of how they proceed with choices. So hopefully you'll enjoy this short episode. Okay, I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's a little fill-in episode. It was supposed to come later, but the guest that I was supposed to record with couldn't record today. So we're going to pop this one in and we'll be back on track with a guest interview next week. But that doesn't mean today is not of value. It just means it's kind of short. And it's just a little tidbit of good information to rearrange the way you think about things in a way that can, in fact, change your life. So spend the 10-ish minutes here with me, if you will. Okay, enjoy. See you soon. Hello and welcome back to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton. And I am here today for hopefully a short episode because I want to talk about something that's been coming up, and somebody said something this week that was basically they'd had a really hard week and they couldn't quite get it together to get back on track. And we were talking about, what was going on and why that was. And she's like, I don't want to make excuses. And I was like, okay, yeah, totally get it. Excuses are not helpful, but I do think an explanation can be helpful. And a little ping went off in my head and I was like, oh, this would be a good podcast topic. What's the difference between an explanation and an excuse? And, to cut to the chase, I would say for me, the real difference is how you use them. They kind of look similar in the first step, but it's really about your intention. So the way that I would define it is that an explanation simply looks to the behavior and tries to find reasons for the behavior, right? We're explaining the behavior. That can be very broad, right? Why is your stomach growling? Well, I am hungry. Okay, that is why, right? Or why are you wearing socks today? Well, my feet were cold, right? And anything. It's like, why? Because. Okay, that's the explanation. But then the intention there should be, in most cases, you want an explanation to understand what happened, that if that is something that you don't want to continue to happen, right? That whatever that behavior is, you can look to the explanation to unpack how it came about and how you can avoid that in the future. So an explanation can help you avoid repeating negative behaviors. An excuse is an explanation created with the intention of repeating the behavior, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So there's this responsibility piece around it. If you come up with an excuse, you're excusing the behavior. You're saying, yeah, but it's not really my fault. I don't, it's not, we know when we're coming up with an excuse, right? And that excuse allows us to return to that behavior. Why are you late? Well, there was a lot of traffic. Well, okay, there's always a lot of traffic. So the reason you're late isn't there's a lot of traffic. I mean, yeah, every once in a while there's some catastrophic event that happened on the freeway, and that time it was a real thing that you could not have predicted. But for the most part, you can predict there's going to be traffic. So if you'd predicted the traffic, you wouldn't have needed to explain why you were late because you wouldn't be late, right? So if you're coming up with an explanation, you're like, why was I late today? Well, there was a lot of traffic. Okay. Then you have to ask yourself, is there always a lot of traffic? Well, yeah. Okay. So the real reason that I'm late is because I didn't leave my house early enough. There are a lot of you right now saying like, well, duh. But like, think it through. This is true in all of our lives, right? The first reason we might come up with to explain something might not actually get to the real explanation. So, sure, if there was never any traffic and you left at the time you left, you might have gotten there on time. But there's always traffic. So, you didn't leave early enough. That's the explanation. If you'd left earlier, you would have gotten there at the appropriate time. So, when we're looking at a food behavior, we can say, why did I eat the cookie? Right? Imagine you had eaten one. Why did I eat it? It's not something that I would put on my food plan for the day, but I ate it. Well, what was that about? And here, again, to harken back to some previous episodes, you have to be curious, not mean to yourself, right? So what led me to eat that cookie? And you think, well, I was having a really bad day. It's like, okay, you were having a bad day and you ate a cookie. Well, have you had bad days before? Well, yes. Do bad days happen a fair amount? Well, yeah. Or bad moments, right? Hopefully not the whole day. So it's like, okay, well, I chose a cookie to deal with the stress I was experiencing from this bad day or this bad moment. Were there alternative choices that I could have made? Right? You have to investigate. Well, yes, I could have gone for a walk. I could have done this. I could have done that. Come up with a list of alternative actions you could have taken to having the cookie, right? The bad day, it's an interpretation, obviously, but, whatever that thing was, maybe it was you got in, apparently I'm very focused on cars. You got into a car accident on the way into work, just a fender bender, or, came out to your car and somebody door dinged you and you were pissed, right? You can't stop that from happening for the most part. Things are going to happen. But it made you feel bad. You had an emotional reaction to it, and we have emotions. It happens. But then how you chose to try and deal with your emotional response, that's really what we're focusing on needing attention. So instead of going to an excuse, I had a bad day, I ate a cookie, sue me, whatever, right? It's defensive. We get curious instead of defensive and we say, well, what's the explanation? And have I really gotten to the bottom of it? It's like, oh, actually, I was really hungry. Like I didn't pack my lunch and then I got in the car and then they were tailgating me and then they rear-ended me and then I was pissed and then I got to the office and there was a box of cookies and I had one and now I feel really bad and my explanation is that I'm, a weak person. It's like, no, let's trace this back, right? Like, okay, you were ill prepared for your day. You probably left the house in a rush. You were probably in a little bit of a hurry. You're probably already a little frustrated. It's like there are these just domino pieces that just all fell and then you fell face forward into a cookie. It's like, okay, that's really useful to unpack. It's like, okay, if I trace this back far enough, where could I have changed the trajectory of the day? Well, if I'd packed a lunch, then I would have had a go-to thing to eat when I got hungry. Okay. Would that have stopped the cookie behavior? Well, it would have made it 50% less likely. Okay. Well, that's an improvement. So that explanation got you to a potential outcome that is different than you got the first time. So this is the strategy that you need to use. And so a lot of people, we had really mean coaches or something at one point in our life, like for a team sport, not my kind of coach, different kind of coach, right? And they were just like mean all the time. And then now somehow they live in your head. And so, no, I'm not interested in excuses. Excuses are useless. Excuses are not helpful, but explanations are very, very helpful. So next time you think, oh, I'm just making an excuse for myself, I want you to stop and say, okay, no excuses, but let's see what the explanation is. And let's go deep. Let's not stop at the excuse level. Let's look at, okay, if I want this behavior to stop, where do I have to trace this back to to get to the bottom of it. So I had a coaching call with a lovely lady the other day, and she'd sort of fallen off. She had some really bad news, and she'd kind of proceeded into a world of carbs that she didn't want to eat. And she woke up every day thinking today's going to be different. And then every day it wasn't different. And, we started talking about it and like getting to the root of it. And she said, I don't want to make excuses for myself. I was like, but you kind of are, right? You're making excuses when you keep doing the behavior, excusing the behavior. Being mean to yourself about your behavior doesn't fix it, right? You have to actually go to the root of it and what's going on and get to a place where you can understand what's going on, because only at that point will you have any chance of stopping it, right? Like, I'm going to make a terrible analogy because I know nothing about cars, but I'm having car issues. My car, like the electrical system is weird in my car. And so like it's telling me right now that one of my tires is low, and my tire is not low because we keep checking it. I have to take the car in to get it fixed, but it's sending a message. It's not the right message. And I have to deal with this message every time I get in the car, but you have to find out what's actually happening. So my car is telling me that my tire is low, but when I check the tire, it is not low. So I'm getting a signal that's the wrong signal. So something's wrong with my car, but it's not the thing that you would think is wrong with my car on first glance. It's not the thing it's telling me. Something else is wrong. So we have to keep investigating until we find out what actually has gone wrong, right? So your excuse is like the message that's flashing on my car, right? It's saying your tire is low. It's like, well, if I just believed that message and added air to my tire would explode because my tire is in fact not low, right? It's fine. The message is wrong, so something's wrong with a different part of my car that's telling me the wrong message. So I have to fix that. So if you stop at the excuse level, you will never make the headway you need to. You have to go all the way back to like the true explanation, and your intention around understanding the true explanation has to be based in a change, right? It has to be based in a desire to prevent the outcome rather than simply allowing the outcome, right? You don't want to make room for the negative outcome you don't want. And that's what an excuse does. Whereas an explanation, getting to the root of it with the intention of changing the trajectory next time, will change your life. All right, guys, this was a quickie, so I hope it was helpful to you. And yes, I'm taking my car in. Okay, guys, talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.